If you're tired of not making progress and you're ready to be the artist you know you're meant to be, you're in the right place. You're listening to the Singer's Path podcast. The Path, or Performing Artists Training Hub, will cover everything, including singing tips that actually work, advice from top industry professionals, and life-changing mindset shifts. Out with the starving artist and in with the thriving artist. I'm your host, Sarah Bishop, professional singer, actor, educator, and entrepreneur. I'm not afraid to speak the truth and stop the gatekeeping of quality information so you can actually become the artist you dream of being. So let's get on the path, shall we? Even though we're all on our own journeys, it always helps to have a guide. Hello. Welcome everybody to the Singer's Path podcast. I'm so excited to have you listening today. And today we're joined, guys, I'm so excited to introduce you, the iconic Linda Tomkinson. So there we go. This is Linda Tomkinson, my mentor. I owe this woman so much. A lot of how I teach and what I teach and the way that my voice has developed obviously has been through IVA, but I have personally chosen Linda as someone that I go to regularly and have developed a relationship with to strengthen my voice. And I just have been drawn to her teaching style. So because I talk about her all the time on here and I'm like, yeah, Linda changed my life and blew my mind, I wanted to make sure that she got a chance to come on here and like be visible to you guys because she's so awesome. So everybody, this is Linda. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Sarah.
Yay. Yeah. Yay. Linda's came for kind of like a girls' weekend plus Adam. That's what we did today. So basically my voice teacher friends came to stay with me in New York because we are very blessed and have quite a large space here. So we try to share it with friends. And Linda came all the way from Salt Lake City, Utah, where she lives in her giant, beautiful house. And she's worked so hard to work on. It's so, I know that because I stayed in it and it was glorious. But anyway, I'm just rambling. Thank you so much, Linda, for joining us. How are you feeling today?
I feel pretty good today.
Feel pretty good. It's so cold.
It is cold. I am cold. This is true.
She's very cold because my super doesn't turn on my heat. So I'm sorry. We're not in between. It's not winter, so they can't like legally do it.
Right.
They're not being forced to by the state. So now we just are crisp, like little frozen, crispy frozen grapes. That's what my fingers look like. So anyway, cool. So I kind of just, Linda's story is really cool and really fascinating, like her journey with singing and how she learned to sing. And so that's kind of what I want to introduce to you guys, in addition to also for the teachers listening, because I know there's some of you out there that like to listen to my stuff. And I think it'll be cool to kind of from mentor to mentee, just break down the different teaching styles and like what we truly believe makes a good teacher and our experience and how we like to grow as teachers, I think can be cool. But first question, Linda, tell me, I just want to know a little bit more about your like history with singing, like how you actually started singing.
Okay.
You're like, okay, back to the very beginning.
Well, to be honest, I always kind of liked singing, but I didn't really get any voice lessons, and I wasn't around a lot of choir stuff or anything. A lot of times people are, but for me, I was married with children, pregnant with my third, and I was quite overwhelmed and needed something to do for myself.
Yeah.
And so I went and found a voice teacher.
Brilliant.
And decided that that's what it was going to be because I liked singing. Mm-hmm. And I think I had been told that I had a good or a decent voice. And so I wanted to do something with it. Anyway, so I found a voice teacher who ended up hooking me up with Seth Riggs. Seth Riggs. Yep.
Famous Seth Riggs.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. I was supposed to be one of his subjects at a seminar that he was coming out to teach, but something happened, And needless to say, I wasn't able to get on stage with him. So the person that arranged it gave me his phone number and told me to go out to LA and have a lesson with him. For my first lesson, when I went out there to have a lesson with him, he straight up told me right away that he goes, well, first he told me that Aretha Franklin didn't have anything on me. And I laughed my guts out. I was like, you don't understand, honey. She has soul. I do not.
She's Aretha Franklin.
I'm pretty white.
White.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. He's like, yeah, she ain't got nothing on you. And I was like, okay.
First of many opinions and things. Yeah.
Right. But I mean, when I walked into his studio and there's like, Michael Jackson gold records hanging on his wall and Stevie Wonder and all that kind of stuff, I was like blown away. Like, he's the real deal, right? Mm-hmm. And he works with people that I listen to on the radio. And so I'm like, well, I believe you, but I had no idea. I had no experience at all. Mm-hmm. And so when I would do what he was asking me to do, and his eyes would like, get lit up and pop out of his head, and he goes, you're really good at this. You should be teaching it. And I was like, I don't play the piano. I don't know anything about music theory. He goes, it doesn't matter. Just learn how to play the scales. And he goes, and by the way, when you go back to Salt Lake City, I need to give you this name of this teacher to go work with.
Okay.
So it was Brett Manning.
Okay.
Brett Manning was my very first real mentor. Other than him, but he was the one that told me to go and work with Brett Manning, because Brett happened to live in Utah, mm-hmm. and so I did. So I started going to see Brett, and I would sit in on lessons, and things just took off from there.
And I remember us talking about this at the Cheesecake Factory when I was asking you a bunch of questions, because we met up for lunch. The first time we, I think, sang in person together, which was even a few years ago, because we had been doing so much stuff online, as you're in Salt Lake City and I'm in New York/Pittsburgh. But I remember you talking about the earlier days of voice teaching before IVA was established and even before SLS was established, that the way that you would learn to be a teacher was just to observe.
Yep.
So you weren't only just observing as a singer, you were observing to see how they interacted with people's voices and what they were doing. And what were those early days of just trying to figure out what they were doing when there was no system to it?
When there was no system to it, it literally came down to basically taking and developing your own voice. So you were trying to figure it out based on your own experience of what you were doing. And then watching and observing thousands of hours of him teaching, plus other mentors. Seth obviously wasn't my only mentor. And watching what they were doing, and then starting to try to apply what you were seeing to the students. Mm-hmm. So I found that the best way for me to learn, once I got going at home, I don't even know what happened, but back in my day, there was not social media. Mm-hmm. There was not any of the things that we do. And I don't know the first thing about advertising, but once I got home and started doing it, all I can say is the results speak for themselves. So mm-hmm. everything was word of mouth, and I had a studio built within a matter of, and I'm not a good business person, mm-hmm. but really fast, because the results were really fast. But I did not know what I was doing all the time, but I was copying the things that I was learning. Mm-hmm. And meaning, I'm like, well, this exercise does this for me, so let me try that on this person, Mm-hmm. And so a lot of it was just diagnostics and cause and effect. Okay, I'm looking for a certain amount of a certain sound out of this person, so let me try this. And then, of course, that was just in the beginning. Mm-hmm. Of course, once we got going and I had met with other mentors, it was probably I got invited out to Seth Riggs' vocal camp to teach mm-hmm. Private lessons during the camp. Mm-hmm. And it became clear and evident at that time that they needed to put together some sort of organization. So what ended up happening was the people that they were called Seth Riggs Associates, and just people that he was like, I like what you're doing, so you can claim my name, mm-hmm. that kind of thing. started going, how are we going to put this in a way that we can teach other people? So they ended up sitting down and literally mapping out, okay, every time somebody makes this sound, he does this sound. And that's how they started to put it together.
And a lot of that was Spencer Welch, right? I remember. No, that wasn't Spencer Welch.
It was Dave Stroud
Okay.
and Dean Kalin and Brett. I mean, a bunch of them, although a lot of them ended up just going off and doing their own thing. But
this was
Greg
in
Enriquez,
SLS days. So this is the forming of
this
SLS.
is pre-SLS and how SLS came about.
So those were the people that were basically mapping and the system that was worked, but wasn't necessarily like
They were trying to form an association, but because Seth is kind of he was really intuitive. If you asked him where he got the technique from, he would tell you that God gave it to him. But basically it was bel canto, but then he adopted it to
contemporary
singing.
Well, that's the thing that's so revolutionary about it, because there was no like contemporary singing.
Right. And he spent a bunch of time fighting academically.
I'm sure.
So much.
I mean, so many contemporary singing teachers still do, I feel, because there's such... I've made podcast episodes about this, but like, how to say this without a little bit of spice to it, but like, I don't know. It's like, yes, we respect and honor the high academic like level of study and like that classical approach. And like, obviously there is a system that works, but the that comes down to it is not all the way applicable to the way that we sing music today. And what frustrates me is I think there are some, we'll just call them like old school minded, small minded people in that community that then go, well, if it's not this old traditional way, then it's wrong. But the problem is if you put the classical approach onto contemporary music, it ends up blowing you out because it's not, like, I feel like contemporary music is done from such a natural perspective. It's sung in a way that is just so much less energy, kind of in a sense, compared to like the full sing of classical singing. And I think it's also fascinating because contemporary singing is rooted in styles of blues and like soul music and like gospel that was actually, again, can be traced back, first of all, to other groups of people that aren't just white European singers,
right?
But, you know, people of color, like African slaves, like tribal systems of which there's this very actually more natural sound.
Yeah, it's deeply cultural and deeply enrooted in who they are. Yeah.
Deeply enrooted. And so it sounds like, that's what I mean. It's like, yes, there are bel canto elements that translate. However, there is a different approach to singing contemporary styles. There's like a different technique to it. There is crossover, but it's not cookie cutter. You cannot put a full classical sound on contemporary music. And we also know this because we both have people who are classical singers come to us who get really confused because they're like, well, I have my master's degree. Why can't I sing Katy Perry? Sorry to say. I mean, I'm going to speak to it.
No, I mean,
listen.
it's totally true. People come out of academia all the time, but then they don't know how to apply what they've learned.
Right.
They've learned so much of the good stuff. You know, they've learned how all the muscles work and everything, and yet they don't know how to take that and apply it because that's not necessarily what they were taught. They know how to do it in their own voices sometimes, especially if they've got...
Listen, I say it's okay. You could be as true. You could be as spicy and truthful as you want because that's how I be. I'm aggressively loving.
Yeah, you know, when they show up and they have a master's degree and I do not, but they need help applying, you know, being able to sing well.
Oh God. Okay, this is. I think we all know someone like this. Okay,
we all do. We all do. And I've been doing this, and I was actually wrong. I was looking at it earlier. I was like, actually, it's been 29 years.
Wow,
and
of experience, and trial and error, and deep mentorship and observation. Yeah,
a lot of it. And so, to me, I'm like, I don't know if you can take somebody who cannot sing at all and teach them how to sing, that says something. So then, if you teach somebody who's got a natural voice and also give them the power of understanding function and technique, then that gift that they have is going to go on forever. You know,
Well, this is an interesting thing because, well, go ahead, finish your thought, and I have another question.
Well,
for
my
you.
thought is that basically, you know, we've been taught by watching Seth do his gift. His gift was internally and intimately, he knew what to do to help the voice when it wasn't functioning. And so it wasn't all, my brain's not thinking, but it wasn't all like, you know, song based, like, oh, well, you need to sing this song because you need this help or that. You know,
this is what your voice does because this is your voice.
Yeah,
type,
we're going
and
to
then
put
need
you
to-
in this little flock right here because this is the
box.
kind of voice you have, and now you have to stay in it.
which is very much what the classical world can be.
Right, and that's what he'd had to deal with. Whereas then all of a sudden you say, no, if you want to actually sing contemporary, you can, which is what I spend a ton of time doing, is getting people that were trained classically or even in theater, who come in and they're like, well, I can't sing pop. Right. And I'm like, well, do you want to? Because yeah, you don't have to, but do you want? Yes, I want to. And so then they learn that they can sing it, and then all of a sudden, they don't want to sing the other stuff anymore.
Right. Yes, of course. Well, the other thing is, I think there's two things I want to say. It just goes down to the point that I think people forget the just very simple aspect that this is an instrument. It's an instrument. You can play it in the way that you want. You just have to learn how to play it in certain ways.
Right.
If we can strip it back to that simple thing, I think we can start to detach from the emotional stories behind it that can sometimes really put us in our head as singers, which of all singers that get put in their head, I can speak to that. And Linda could tell you she could write a novel about the way that she helps me get it out of my head. But so I think that simplification can sometimes help loosen the grip. The other thing I was curious about your input on this, teaching a singer from the ground up, which sometimes I think back on that and I'm like, oh my God, if I would have found you when I was 11 years old, like what would have happened with my voice? And like sometimes I even grieve that, but like not in our control and not really helpful, but like at also the same time, like, oh my God, the winding journey that I went on to find you. And like most of what we do is just undoing things that had happened earlier because of a misstep in my understanding of a note that a teacher gave and I've just held on to it, or we're unraveling how I experimented when I didn't have the resources of support that I needed to get certain sounds and sing certain ways. We're unraveling what my body did to adapt out of desperation to get a sound.
Exactly.
Right. And you really teach people to strip back away from that and just rely on the pure function of the voice. Right. And we'll kind of circle back to how SLS then turned into IVA and how it got way more based in kind of the bridge between contemporary pedagogy and the combination of science. And then, you know, all of the other mentors that all were so brilliant in bringing all of that around, which, you know, we'll talk about that in a second. But what's your experience like? I don't know. I guess what I'm trying to ask is like the difference between you being the one helping to naturally bring a voice up versus someone that like you have to unravel a little bit like me. And I guess I've heard, but like I know how I sound and what our voice lessons sound like. And then I've also heard singers that you've worked with since they were children and how insane they are. They're insane. And they're like on The Voice. They're on amazing things. Like as a teacher, like what are those differences for you? And like,
well, if you get obviously someone that hasn't been messed with, and then also, you know, if they have some gift, then your job is so much easier because a child usually, it depends on their interest level, by the way, and their attention span.
yeah.
If a child is only there because, you know, the parent's like, no, you're going to do this, and they bring him, and but if you get one that's really, you know, interested in doing it, it's funny that you said 11 because 11 is, I think,
It's like a good age.
It's a great age. I've had others that start younger. But when you do, I think 11 is a good age for starting, in my experience. Mm-hmm. And so they haven't had anybody mess up their psychology. Mm-hmm. And so, because as you know, a bunch of what we do is, you know, it's psychology. It's like, can you think about this instead of this? or I need you to think about the tool. In other words, not putting a tone somewhere, but could you focus on really enunciating that vowel? Could you focus on this? And anyway, since they're younger and they don't know any different, then I don't have to break down habits that were instilled by other teachers or whatever before I can get their brains to let their voice do it. I mean, that's what I spend most of my time with you on.
Yes.
Is getting your brain to let your voice do what it already knows to do. But you've done other things that get in the way. And once we can get you to calm down or think about something else, the voice starts working.
Or balance on one leg while reading a book about feminine health.
Like today.
Somehow, guys, the amount of mind effery that I have to get myself out of that this woman is so patient with me with, and then it's the same thing. And we've been studying for a while now. I think it's like our 5th year together. I think coming up. Yeah, I think so. That it's like, oh gosh, like she'll just sit behind the piano and look at me and be like, you can do it. Do it again. She'll go, read your book. So I have to like pull out a prop or do something. Like today I was literally reading text out of a book and standing on releve. So that I didn't think about it, because it's exactly right. It's almost like, and it's kind of interesting, like the you're talking about psychology and how it's about getting out of your own head, but it's also about returning to what your body already naturally can do. And
Right.
it's interesting is like there's like a psychological comparison isn't that what it means to like grow up and return to yourself? Right?
Wow,
As
yeah.
children, sorry, that was like a mic drop for no reason.
Yeah.
But like it's the same thing. The parallels in when you do therapy and when you're like quote unquote healing, really all we're doing is returning back to our whole selves that already exist within us.
Right.
We're just unlearning programming that we picked up along the way.
Right.
What? Oh man.
That is really a big part of it. But also keep in mind, I mean, again, you said this is our 5th year. So
Yeah.
we didn't spend the whole, like the first year or two going, oh, could you just stop thinking about this or the other?
No. That took time. No, there was a lot of function.
There was a lot of function in the beginning. We're more about application now than anything else.
Yeah.
Meaning I don't have to do a lot to get the function and the balance going in your voice.
Right.
Now, because we've been together forever, and I don't have to, I can just say something. I don't even have to play, or I don't have to show you. But
Right.
usually in the beginning, it's, this is what you're doing, and this is what I need you to do. And it's just you being able to hear the difference in the sound and focus on the tool and then apply it and practice that back and forth so that you know what you should feel like in the song. So you have had those sensations already. So now we're just to the point of, and we've been here for a little while of now, how are you going to play it to song? Like, and I know without even speaking. So if somebody was watching us, they might laugh because you point at me or I'll point at you and we both know what
and then
we're
we
talking
both
about.
know. I'll have to see if I
Yeah.
can edit. I videotaped part of our lesson. Hopefully it didn't get cut off from all those spam calls I was receiving.
Yeah.
But there were moments where, and I think this can point out a couple things that are important. One, finding a teacher that you can build a long relationship with, that you trust, that knows you.
I think that's the key is trust. You have to trust the person you're going in with.
And I think the way to build that trust, because you were the teacher I've been with the longest from all of my vocal education so far, then I have seen the results the fastest. But I think that's part of it is like, if you're a teacher listening to this, you'll build the students' trust if you work on your own skill outside of lessons and come in and you build your toolkit in order to get them to experience the results the fastest. And that's what you're saying. You grew your studio by word of mouth because the results were speaking to themselves. And so that kind of brings me back to the conversation about how SLS then formed into IVA, because it was like you guys were getting a bunch of results, but you wanted to be able to translate this information to teachers all over the world so that the quality of information was benefiting more singers, more people. So like, what was that process of that? I know it was a very emotional and it was a difficult process, but.
And if you went and talked to Seth, he does not.
He does not associate.
He's like, SLS is not IVA or IVA is not SLS or whatever. But the truth is that all of us came from the same functional background of working with him. And we were actually working as an organization already he had a worldwide organization of like 700 plus teachers.
Wow.
And he is like in his late 80s. Now he's probably in his mid 90s.
Wow.
But the thing is we were managing like 750 teachers. And I think there was like 7 of us managing them all. And
Are you serious?
yes. And so that's what I mean. He was, there's no way that he himself could manage that many teachers.
No.
And so, when we got into a situation where there needed to have a change happen, those of us that were managing the other teachers, and what I mean that was we were responsible for their education and making sure that they were getting trained right and that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And so once we decided that it wasn't going to work anymore because he had a major circumstantial change in his life, that we were just like, we're gonna keep doing this because the teachers need it. Mm-hmm. I mean, that was the whole reason. We're like, we love helping the teachers. And so we just thought, well, we're going to, we'll try to change the language or whatever, but it's the same stuff. Mm-hmm. But of course, he's had to say that we're not them. Well, you're right, we're not them. Because once we left and just said, we're going to stay together and whatever comes of it, mm-hmm. basically. And then we wanted to get, we wanted to keep going with where we were already headed, basically mm-hmm. getting in a systematic way of helping teachers learn, good functional technique, basically, is what it boils down to. And so I really think that, now this is where Spencer comes in. Spencer just has a gift for putting things in a systematic way.
He really does.
He really does, and I just love that about him.
He's brilliant.
Brilliant.
It's
I
insane.
think he is, and I think that he was. I mean, we were all there together working on it, and like at the end of every year when we would do testing, we'd like, okay, what habits did we see that we didn't like? What's going on that we thought needed change? And we have to keep reminding ourselves that we were a young, brand new organization, and changes would keep happening because we were like a living.
It's like a breathing vessel.
Yes.
It's like,
and we are just like, hey, we think that this concept is causing this over here and we don't like it. So we got to scale that back, or it's time to add more or whatever. And that's kind of what's developed over the past 13 years. So now we have a more holistic approach mm-hmm. and, and we're more open. We're not like, hey, it's my way or the highway, but we do have the core concepts that we don't stray from. Like I might approach a lesson completely different than one of the other mentor teachers or master teachers or whatever. But we're not going to be like stray. You're not going to find us straying from the core concepts of function and balance.
Right. So it's like creating and I just finished the newer program that you guys had designed to, it seemed just like make it more streamlined. Cause I feel like
we were trying.
Right. And that's what's the brilliant part about this is like just brilliant minded people and the passion behind just sharing the best quality information that they can get their hands on and to make it as systematic and applicable as possible. It's the same thing. Applicable as possible so that it gets out to more people. It's just brilliant. And even in the, 5 years that I've been involved with the organization, it's been interesting to really see how the entire organization embodies that flexibility and that evolving that happens. Because I started out in like the old, 10-year, it was 8 to 10 year program.
It was a 10-year program.
It was a 10-year program. And you know what though? I signed up knowing that. I kind of was just like, you know what? I could go to NYU and get my pedagogical degree and master. But then I just had this feeling, even because I had already come in my undergrad out of a top school in the world for musical theater and music. And I still felt like after paying $120,000 for my education, which I did end up paying off. I ended up using my entire paycheck from Cabaret to pay off my student loans, which was very responsible of me at the time. But I just had this feeling that the higher education, route in that specific way wasn't it for me. I wanted to learn specifically from the people that were actively doing it, who were actively still teaching in a contemporary way, in a present way, not stuck in academia in their old system and not actually applying it in the real time.
Right.
And that's why I was willing to sign up for a 10-year commitment, because it was this is still definitely an investment. However, it's an investment that I can afford more in comparison to that kind of financial debt. I
Right.
can pay my way. And that's immediately what happened. Like as soon as I joined IVA, I actually initially joined because Emily Kristen Morris, I had her on a podcast and she was like, hey, listen, I have this amazing like platform now that's just growing and growing and growing because I'm doing this voice teacher training. You should come do it because I trust you and I know that you would be a good teacher. So you should go get trained and then join.
I remember her
Yeah.
first year in the program.
It was, and she was basically making this more visible to people, right? Her
Yeah.
and Chelsea Wilson, and I know Hannah Bales at one point was part of the program as well.
Yeah.
And was bringing this information to the front. And there's just such a network of brilliant teachers. So to firsthand experience even that shift of like, I do remember in those first couple years of that longer program being like, okay, I have been singing for a long time though. And I do have my degree and I am a professional. So I need an option that's a little faster.
Yeah.
And
Well,
yeah,
I'm just going to tell you that this is one of the issues that we've had as one of the owners and organizers of the program is trying to meet people where they're at. And this is a philosophy of mine. We've talked about it a lot, but the thing that's most important, and I think one of the things that make you especially effective as a teacher is being able to meet your pupil wherever they're at.
Yeah.
So when we have people join the program, and I mean that personally in your studio and as the organization, being able to, when someone, we wouldn't know who we were going to get.
Right, of course.
You will get some people join the program and they already have a master's in vocal pedagogy or whatever, and in voice, or even a doctorate. Or then you get the high school graduates, or you get people that are just interested in learning about it. And so, trying to find a way to meet everybody's needs has been the hardest thing. So, someone who has a Bachelor of Music or whatever, and they come in, and you're like, no, you need to sit in this for a while for it to marinate and grab hold of it. It's hard for them to understand that concept.
Yeah.
So here's my regrets. The 10-year program. So the people that are still with us who have completed the 10-year program, because we're only 13, 14 years
there's
old.
still going to be people.
Yeah. The ones that have completed it, I'm telling you, we really, really shaped some top teachers.
Well, of
we
course.
really did. But in trying to meet the needs of teachers sooner and faster and trying to figure out ways to do that, that's why it came up with the 3-year professional program, voice teacher professional program. And I still think we're getting, some really great results out of that. But if
it's
you
still
take
different than
them
taking
and
time.
compare it to the ones that have been in for 8 or 10 years, there's such a massive difference. But I think it comes down to this. We have to allow people to decide how much they want to take in. And because you can't, we want people to have accountability for what we teach them, but you can't police people, right? And so you have to let them grow at their own rate. And so we're like, okay, we can give people a really strong hold of our basics in that amount of time. But that does not mean if we send them away while they're thinking, okay, I've learned all there is to learn.
No, you have not.
Then we've failed them. So I hope that they keep stretching and learning and growing. And I think that's the new kind of concept we're bringing in, because those who do stay with it and keep going, the results are obvious to those of us that have been around for a long time.
Yeah.
We can tell a huge difference. And so, we're still always constantly collecting information and reevaluating how we want to approach the next year.
Yeah. I think it was, I'll say, I can see what you mean of like the pros and cons. Because I was like in the so I got like kind of both. Like I had like the 3, but it was extended 2 years. So it was like kind of half. But I also looked at the whole situation like I want the system of the actual program so that I get all of the like formulaic things, but then that extra step of like doubling my requirements of lessons.
Yeah.
Not just investing this thousands of whatever dollars into the program, but also into you, what to kind of almost bring into that old model of what you were doing. So it was like a combination for me. Now, of course, I still have so much to learn and I'm ready and open and available to do that and excited to see what more there is, especially around like it's like the more you study your voice, like it's like having money, you just have better problems. Like you have like other things arise that you maybe didn't even realize was going to be on the journey. So it's like the support that you need is never going to end. But I do think that the 3-year program, since especially when working with Emily's studio and even in myself and starting to grow my own platform online, I do appreciate having both the in-depth mentorship with you, which I am not afraid to bring my students to you as well, when just to make sure. I'm like, listen, I don't have 30 years of this going on. I want to make sure to best serve my clients, especially those that are so high performing, so high achieving. It's like, I do need all of the tools available to me as much as I can in the system earlier.
Yeah.
And I want extra support. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that quickness of like getting exposed to that was important.
It's good that you brought that to circle that back around, because in the beginning, when you asked me, how did I get training if it was all observation? Well, part of that, before SLS came to be, I had, Seth was my teacher, but I also had a few mentors that were his teachers as well. And I would just say, okay. I would fly a teacher in and I would line up all of my clients and watch them teach my clients. That was the biggest and the best training I could have given myself, because there were voices that I already knew because I had been working with them. And then I could watch my mentors work with them, and either it would confirm that I was on the right track, or I could ask questions while they were there about that voice, or it would say, hey, I'm missing a piece in this voice. And it was the best thing I ever did. And so when we started doing things like, SLS Teachers Conference, and then that all switched over for me anyway, into an IVA thing, and people would ask me, how did you learn it? And I'm like, so many hours of observation. But the other piece that was really important to that, which is what you're talking about right now, was like for 3 days straight, I would have them come and I would just watch them for 3 days and see what they did and see if it was making sense. And then I would ask questions, and I would take my own lessons, and it was huge. So I always had several people that I trusted that I could lean on, and then of course you learn the ones that you can't. And then watching my clients grow. So I'd hype up my students and I would be like, hey, my teacher's coming into town and I need you to take a lesson. And I'm going to watch, and we're going to go from there. And it didn't matter what their skill level was.
Right.
It didn't matter to me at all. I just wanted, because I was interested in whoever walked into my studio, of knowing that I could help them. And one of the things that I've tried to point out a lot of times is the thing that's great about this technique is that you can teach. If somebody wants to learn how to sing and they have the will, you can teach them. Yep. You can teach them. And so for the business part of it, you're always going to work.
Yeah.
No matter what, you're always going to work. But the old teacher mentality of, we were talking about old school teaching before, is, well, they don't want to work with you if you don't already have a certain amount of skill or talent.
Yeah.
And I, in a way, I get that. But the other thing is, I'm like, because you don't know how to help them?
Right.
Or is that really what's going on? Because you don't know how to take that sound and help it sound better?
Right. So then it gets back to like, what does that,
Yeah.
that actually make a good teacher? It's
Exactly.
really adapting to what's in front of you.
It's being able to meet their needs. And how can you do that if you don't? You have to learn how to understand function. And how do you learn that? Well, you're going to, it's a lot of ear training, a lot of observation, and a lot of understanding the tools and what your toolbox is, and how to apply the tool to the dysfunction that you're hearing.
Right. And applying it to your voice, but not just doing that. You do have to apply it to other voices. You have to be mentored in how that's being applied. You have to and then what's interesting too is the more you work on your voice, the more it's like remodeling a bathroom. You're just going to peel more and more and more back. And it's fascinating, like the more that you uncover about your own voice and the more function from the mentorship of applying the tools in the system, the more you'll be able to help other students. However, if you're just a singer listening to this and you think that your training so far as just a singer, I'll buzz that in a second. But if you think your training as just a singer so far has been enough without the pedagogical functioning, the system, the observation, and the ear training, like it's almost like you need all of these things to get the most and the best out of being able to serve the student and be able to pivot and apply.
Right.
There's also a little bit of magic too,
and
a little bit of intuition that comes into it as well.
There is that intuition, but being able to understand your toolbox and what it does and function is what brings the magic for people. And you help people who want to sing so bad, who cannot sing naturally at all. You can help them. Mm-hmm. And so to me, that's always great. But of course, I always love as well. So I don't limit my clients to, I used to have some people be like, well, you only work with because they hear people and they're like, well, you must only work with really advanced singers. I'm like, well, if you want to learn, you can try and I'll help you, but it's going to depend on your level of commitment and, whatever you want to do. I wanted to circle this back around though to the time commitment and why we changed from a 10-year to a 3-year program, because the time that it takes to sit in and learn sound and be able to apply tools to the sounds that you're hearing and know what the function is behind a certain sound. Yeah. You cannot grasp that fully in 3 years.
Right.
You can, but it just takes a long time. Obviously, the longer, the better you sit in it. Mm-hmm. And a big part of the training, so like when we had the last part of training, people want, well, give me a textbook. I'm like, there isn't one. It's called sitting in it with another teacher, being willing to let that teacher say, have you thought about this? Did you think about that? Do you hear that? It's like that personal one-on-one training, and then being able to go into your own studio and try it out. Mm-hmm. And that's something that you have to take and do with still mentorship, but if that part's missing, we can't turn out somebody who's been trying that out for 10 years. You can get all that other stuff in 3 years pretty quick, maybe even faster for somebody who comes in with a master's in voice or whatever. They could just eat it all up like that. But that does not mean that they still hear function and know what to do about it. In fact, I've come across that a lot. So after I've taught them for a while, and then they start asking me, well, where did you go to school? And where'd you get your degree? And I'm like, I don't have one.
Yeah. But you
and
have the
all
hours.
Of I'm sure I've spent more hours than most of them in private training and teaching and all that kind of stuff, which, they obviously get, or they wouldn't keep coming back,
Right.
So
I think it's interesting too, because, we've been talking about ways to, as a business owner, then to scale and help. And I mean, you guys are also running a different business. There's other people running this other business of IVA, in addition to everybody has their own studios, and it's like a lot going on. But even because a lot of our listeners here are singers, it's like, I've tried my best, but like just what you said, I've tried my best to make it simple in a way that at least if a singer is going to do something more self-paced because of a budget issue, because, or they want to work with me, which is lovely. And I love that you want to work with me. And unfortunately, running a business and doing all these things, there's only so many hours in a day. So like, that's why there's other teachers available. But like in the meantime, a big part of my business is like trying to help educate the singers as much as we can, to help them feel a little less powerless, because when there's a singer that becomes like, no, I want to be a voice teacher, obviously there are layers to like, they need to do ear training. But I feel like singers also need to do that to an extent so that they understand their own instrument, almost to the point where they just, listen, we always need our private teacher, but to not be as codependent on them in a sense of like, I just go to you and you fix me. Like, so that's been an interesting thing to try to pivot into, to best serve them in a different way. You know what I'm saying? And like try to help a broader amount of people. So
again, you just meet your students where their needs are. Yeah. I do have students who just want me to fix them. They'll come in and like, just fix it. I'm like, okay, here we go.
Yeah, here we go.
We've done this many times, and I think that if you kind of thought through it, you could try to help yourself, but they would just prefer to have me do it for them.
Sure.
And I understand that for myself I would prefer to go to someone, turn off my teacher brain and just play dumb and do what they ask me to do and let them do their work.
Well, sometimes I have to do that too, because if my teacher brain is on while I'm in a lesson, I'm not going to do it right. So I'm going to be messing with it too much.
You are so right when you say that. And as you know, since I train a lot of teachers, a lot of it is, okay, remember that our whole concept is based on cause and effect. So it kind of, what does that mean? That means, okay, this is what I'm hearing you do. And this is what I'd like to hear you do. And giving them something to contrast the sound that they're making to. And so that is a lot of it. So you have to, in order for your brain to let you do that, you have to, you have to get out of the teacher mindset and then now be a singer or the dancer that's stupid and not stupid. But the dancer that
Dancers are not stupid.
No, they're not stupid. But I mean, they're willing to stand there and just let you do whatever with them usually versus the philosophy student who comes in and is like, why? Let me do this. And I'm like, you know what? Ask me that question in 6 months and then I'll answer it. But right now, I just need you to make this sound like this, And I've had times with people like that. I'm just like, I'm not going to answer that question right now because it's not going to help you. It's going to make it worse. And I don't want to.
I think you've told that to me.
Yeah.
Yes.
Ask me that question in 6 months.
Like, don't think about it. Don't place it. Don't try.
You need to understand it if you're going to teach it. And it's nice to have some of it for when you're working with yourself so that you aren't codependent on a teacher if you don't want to be, or if you just want to have your coach there, that's fine too. But all of that depends on budget and everything you just said. It depends on what, their goals are. So when they come in, it's important to find out what goals are, what it is that they're trying to achieve so that you know how to meet them where they're at. Right.
Because that's, at the end of the day, we were having this conversation. I think the best educators are the ones that are humble enough to, learn in a way with each student, learn what they need.
Yes.
And adapt to that.
You have to adapt to their learning style, whatever that is.
Yeah.
And I find most people, a good, I'd say 75% are great when it comes to like cause and effect. But there are others that does not work for.
Right. Sometimes some people need like visualizations.
They really need visualizations, and I use a little bit, but not a lot. It's not what the core basis is for me. Usually I only use visualization when it comes to straw work, or I'm trying to get somebody else to do other things. But there are people in our organization who that is not the best way that they learn, and so they do it. Works for them, and we're just trying to provide like a clearinghouse of information for people so that once you get the core basics down, that you can kind of go off and try to specialize in what it is that you like or you enjoy. But
still get results because you're from a systematic place that is based in pedagogical foundation that works, that is functional.
Functional technique.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
That's so exciting. Well, okay. Thank you so much for sharing all of this knowledge, Linda. I just want to leave the listeners here. I'm sure like next time we meet, maybe we could do this again and do part 2 of getting into more stuff. But I want to leave Linda's top list of things she wishes singers would do. And I know one of them very well, and it's the sticky topics of the laryngeal position. But I'm like kind of curious if they're like just some golden nuggets. Now, guys, take this with a grain of salt because again, we're only going to know what you need based on like if we heard you and we're able to adapt to you, right? That was like the whole point of this, and understanding the basic functional tools. But are like maybe some things that singers aren't aware of or they haven't kind of heard that like are like, you're like, listen. Listen, it can feel absolutely nuts being a performer, especially a professional performer. Our minds are a little bit wild. We're super creative. We can make things out of nothing, which is awesome. But sometimes our minds can work against us and we can be really self-critical. We can spin out. We can get anxious. We can have a hard time letting go of things. We can really sabotage our own success. Quite frankly, as brilliant as our brains can be, they can work against us just as much. That's why it's time for us to start looking at our training beyond even just being in the vocal studio or going to the gym. You need to train your mind, do that mental and emotional game so that you can stay in it longer and actually bring into fruition the success that you've been working so hard for. You need to take your brain to the gym. That's why I created the absolutely free Abundant Artist audio series. Let's get your brain, your nervous system, your subconscious mind to be on board with the success that you actually want. Let's rehearse for that. Olympic athletes rehearse the mental game of being on the field or being on the court. Why wouldn't you? If you're following your dreams and you're pursuing your dreams, this is the missing piece because you're not welcoming the success. You're subconsciously pushing it away because we're not rehearsing for the success. So go to the link in my bio, get the absolutely free Abundant Artist audio track. Let's start feeling like the artist that we actually want to be. Let's start rehearsing for that success. Stop being the artist that's just surviving, pursuing your dream, and let's start thriving. This is, I mean, I know you have them because we talk about them. I know one of your big ones is the laryngeal position. I just speak on it for a sec. Speak on some like you just wish singers just knew. If it like broad. This is broad, right?
Things that I wish singers knew. Wow.
Sorry, that's a big question.
Yeah.
On the last question.
Well, I like hearing from you as being experienced as one of my clients telling me that apparently I talk about that a lot with you.
Well, with me, because when you're adapting to me, one of my big issues is, again, a stable, not necessarily low, but a neutral, flexible laryngeal position.
Yeah.
And because a lot of the people I think that listen to this and listen to my content, they relate to my habits because they might also have those habits. So like, I guess, that's something.
I mean, the
important.
lyrics, I think it takes time to get intimate enough with your voice to be able to feel, unless you're outright like, squeezing the guts out of your voice and stuff like that. And most singers are better than that as far as knowing when they're doing. Sometimes they, obviously they know they're not doing something right when they come away and their voice is hurting or it's, just getting exhausted way too fast or something's going on. But things that I would like them to know is I think a lot of it is if they can, that's really hard to say. You know what I think the number one teaching aspect is just being able to understand and hear sound. What is she saying? And can she but to me, I'm like, if you can copy me, you're going to learn. That's it. Mm-hmm. If you can copy this sound, then you're going to learn. And if you can hear the difference when I demonstrate a sound, then you're going to learn. But if you're not willing to go back and listen to the difference in the sounds, because in the beginning, I remember I couldn't hear the difference in I remember a lesson that I was having and the teacher was like, not loud. And I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, it sounds like this big.
Yeah. So it's like the translation is like the hardest part.
It is because so then this just helped me clear this up.
Okay.
What you hear in your head is not
what we hear.
Yeah. So if you would stop listening to yourself.
Oh, that's a big ass. It's a big ass for singers. But yes,
that's a big
listening
thing to yourself.
Yeah.
Right. And then judging it as you go. So to me, you've got to start, stop listening. It's much easier said than done. Mm-hmm. But I want someone to learn to feel what they cannot hear. Mm-hmm. And then they can start to learn to hear what they can't feel. And it's kind of I used to always say, you got to go more by feel than what you hear because, again, but I think over time I'm like, well, no, they've got to be able to hear too, but it's kind of a dance between the two. Mm-hmm. And so being able to understand what you're hearing and feeling and then which one needs the most work or attention, doing those things. But to me, it's basically, this is what I'm hearing. This is what I need you to, this is what you need to, because a lot lot of think, okay, you just made me think of another one. So
this is what I'm saying.
Thank you for helping me flesh it out. But students think that you're doing what you asked. And you're like, but they're not.
Right.
Because they don't really know how to listen, or they're not dialed in enough to the
nuance,
to the nuances of the sound.
and that can come from physical engagement. If you're dissociating from your body and you're not really tuned into the absolute subtleties that these are, sometimes it's just the thought. You've said that a lot because of how small these adjustments are, and you think you hear that sound and you go, well, obviously it's this, and then you completely blow it out of the water. I mean, how many students do you have that like overachieve and overdo the corrections? And I think
mostly the teachers are the ones that do that. But
mostly
yes.
teachers. I think it also comes down to, like you said, being present enough in your body so you can experience the subtleties, but also being surrendered to figuring it out.
Well, here's the other thing. Students that keep coming, but they don't listen to their lessons when they go back, because I'm like, you're not hearing it. So what I want you to, I'll ask them in the moment, and they're honest. Some of them are like, no, I can't tell. I'm like, okay. So when you listen back to your lessons, I'm like
I
listen.
just did today, right?
Then you need to rewind and listen again until you hear what I said. And if you don't hear it, that's okay. Rewind and listen again.
Again.
And then rewind and listen again, and then go back and listen to what it was that I was trying to point out until you hear it. I remember doing that. I'm like, I don't hear what they're saying. Rewind, listen again. Rewind, listen again. Oh my gosh. I heard it that time. And so if you're coming in with, virgin ears and you don't know what's going on, I mean, it's part of the training, and so people, if you don't listen back, or you don't listen back to the singing portion, or you don't listen back to the exercise portion or whatever, you're just limiting yourself and how long it's going to take. And so those are all really important things. And one other thing that I thought of, this was actually the first thing I thought of when you asked me the question, is vocal hygiene.
Ooh.
And when I say that, it's much more simple than it sounds. And what I mean by that is, I had a professional singer who never slept at night.
What?
And so then it would be quite frustrating. Like, I would know that the voice was totally capable of everything that we were wanting to do.
Just exhausted.
But he would come in and I would just like, okay, because I know for me, if I have not gotten sleep for several nights in a row and I go to sing and I've not done anything wrong with my voice, but it won't obey me, and it's just because exhaustion is taking over, So things like that, like, oh, maybe you shouldn't smoke weed because that's going to dry out your vocal folds.
Dry you out. Or drink a lot.
Another client who I was just like, okay, I am not your, minister. I'm not your whatever. But you've got to do that less if you want this to keep going.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Health. It's your instrument, is your body.
It's vocal hygiene. So, and the other thing is if you live in a super dry climate like mine, then you got to be willing to drink all the time and pee all the time or whatever. Yeah. But you got to be willing to do certain things
to get it to behave in the way that you want, because of how subtle these things are, especially when you're training it in and it isn't automatic yet.
Yeah. These are just pieces to the puzzle that people don't think they need to do, especially if they move from like a nice wet climate to a dry climate and they're like, why doesn't anything work anymore? I'm like, well, if you can learn to sing in Utah, you can sing anywhere.
If you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball.
Yeah.
I was telling you about that. You're like, okay, Sarah, that's very nice. Well, I think I want to point out a couple ways that you can get more help from us as we're wrapping up this episode. First of all, I think that's why I also began group lessons, as I'm trying to tier my business in a different way that meets my needs as a person, but also to get the best results for people. And that's also why I've been just so in love with the concept of group lessons, because of IVA actually, and how much I've learned from being in class, not just as a teacher with teacher ears, but as just like learning to be an intelligent singer and learning to train my ears in that sense of watching the teacher train other voices. That is just as valuable for singers as it is for other teachers, because it's exactly what you're talking about. Yes, you need to listen to your own lesson and hear those differences like we just did. We just had
nuances.
A lesson.
Yeah.
I immediately put it on, and she's absolutely right. The things that Linda's telling me to do, like narrow the vowel, hold on to the, the creakiness of the vocal folds, thinking of a slight bratty sound, even though they're just thoughts, it makes a huge difference in overtones. It makes a difference in pitch. And so not only I'm going back and I'm auditorially processing what she was telling me, I'm speaking and I literally said, I was like, oh, you're absolutely right. Because if I didn't do that, the pitch goes out. Oh, I lose the overtones. Oh, wow, the tone quality is a lot better. So in a private sense, obviously you need to do that. Linda obviously is brilliant. I can link her stuff down if you would love to experience an intimate moment with Linda in her studio, because she's absolutely insane, and like, please do it, because like literally like the best voice teacher I've ever had in my entire life. And I know I said that, you're like, thank you, but like I really don't say that lightly. I'm really honest about that. And again, the way that I teach right now, there is a way to work with me privately. However, it is booked out for the time being. So you can keep your ears peeled for that. But the best way is to, again, do pillars, do discover, get those understanding of the tools that's going to be best for the perspective of the singer, and then come to group. Because that's going to be the place where we're starting to apply it for you, those group lessons. You're not only going to be able to hear the adjustments we're working together in a private, they're small groups, they're basically semi-private lessons, but then you also get the added benefit of training your ears, not just from your voice, but from other voices, because other voices in there may have other habits that you haven't run into yet, or maybe have a habit that you already resolved, that you're like, oh, wait, I absolutely can hear that. Oh my God. And it starts
I had so many clients that are dabbling in the thoughts of teaching that'll just be like, hey, can I come and sit in on your lessons? And then they sit in, and after a while, and then the student will be like, oh my gosh, that's exactly what you've been telling me. And I finally heard it.
Finally clicks.
And
it's
it finally
huge.
clicks because they just came in and observed some other lessons. Whereas before they were like, I thought I heard it. I remember thinking the same thing. Sometimes I'm like, you're telling me the exact same things I tell my students, and they're like one of my mentors, which was Dave, he was just like, it happens to all of us. And
It
I was
happens
like,
to all of us. But that's the other thing about private group. Because then you witness other people being told the same thing and they're struggling with it and they don't get it. And then you're like, no, just hold on, because you know that you can do it.
Right.
You hear
well,
it.
you start to hear it in their voices, and then it's easier for you to put the finger on it in your voice. So
yeah, what a beautiful conversation.
What a great thing you're doing.
Thanks. Well, it's all about listen, everybody's going to be at a different pricing tier. Everybody's going to be different places in the world. I'm just so proud to be associated with IVA, and I know I'm a little bit of the wild child and how I handle myself compared to the just absolute poise and grace of most of the people in the organization. I'm literally like the naughty child, and how I talk.
You
about
are not the naughty child.
You're like, you're not like that. I appeal to the artistic crazies out there. Hey, I know you're out there, just like me, and I know you love this, but. I just think this was just such a beautiful conversation of marrying. What does it mean to become a good teacher? The process is never ending, and it's actually a community effort. If you are a teacher listening to this, or you're a singer that wants to become a teacher, really consider joining specifically IVA, because I love it, and at least finding a system that works for you so that you can be doing this, so that you can do what you really want to do, which is best serve people. Because why do we become teachers if you don't? That's a whole other conversation. There's some people that don't.
That is
actually
another
care.
great conversation to have.
Maybe we can have it the next time. But
okay.
I just want to thank you so much, Linda,
You're
for coming.
welcome. Thank you for asking me.
Of course,
That was fun.
Thank you.
It's the funnest I've ever done.
Oh my God, was it? Oh my God.
Well, I haven't done a lot of podcasts before.
Yeah, but
I'm fully engaged in what I'm doing in my studio, but you are doing a great job. So
Thanks,
it's
dude.
very exciting.
Thanks, dude. Well, we'll have to invite you back. And thank you so much, singers, for listening. And I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Bye.
See ya.
If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a 5-star written review on Apple Podcasts. This helps me get this information out to more artists all over the world. Let's work together to spread the joys of music. Until next time, I'm your host, Sarah Bishop, signing off from the Singer's Path podcast. Thanks for listening.